advice for first-year teachers would be that it is the hardest job that you will ever do in your life. And you need to go into your first year knowing that you are going to be mentally and physically exhausted. However, statistics show that teachers get more Valentine cards than anybody in the world. So it's little perks like that that make it worth it. But you still have to go that extra mile, just like doing an internship. Stay for the meetings, volunteer for things. They're going to sign you up for things. And you know what? You love it, because that's what secures your job. You're that person that goes beyond and above because you want the job. That's my advice.
My advice for first-year teachers would be to, first of all, realize that you will survive, that this year is a really great year for growth and learning, and just take a deep breath, absorb everything, plan ahead, be on top of things, but realize that you will make it and you will survive and you will be a better teacher by the end of your first year.
My advice to a first-year teacher is to be passionate about your work, be enthusiastic, be a team player, persevere. This will be the hardest year you will ever have in teaching, but the reward is so worth the effort that you put forth. So just hang in there, persevere, work hard, and impact those students' lives. Always think about the student before you make a decision, and you'll do well.
Okay, so my advice for a first-year teacher is really advice for any teacher that is starting out their career, and that is that you have to be totally ethical. You have to be mature beyond your years. Many people start teaching in their early 20s, and they may not have the life experience that someone who has been teaching for 10, 12, 15 years has, but you have to act like you do. Nothing in your private life is private anymore. You can't do anything that you wouldn't want your students to see you doing, because there's a good possibility that they might get to see you doing it. Don't ever friend parents or students on Facebook. Your students probably shouldn't be on Facebook anyway unless they're 13 or older. But it's good to keep that professional distance from people that may seem like friends.
If I had one piece of advice for new teachers, it would be to be really careful about striking that life-work balance. It's important to do a really good job at your job, but it's also very important for you to take time for yourself and take care of yourself. That means exercising, eating right, sleeping, doing all the things that you know you're supposed to do, but as a new teacher, you often let slide. So be really careful about when you leave work at work.
My advice for first-year teachers is to make sure that you say yes to everything that your supervisor, your administration wants you to do, because the more that you can take on, the better that your security will be. But then on the other hand, you want to make sure that you are a good time manager before you accept any of those offers. So if you're not a good manager of your time, then you're going to have to be very cautious and not say yes to some things. But saying yes really puts your name out there. It reminds all of the administrators and fellow teachers that you're a really good person to work with, and that you'll help in any capacity that you can.
My advice for first-year teachers is to get to know the parents before you need them or before you have to call them concerning their child.
My advice for first-year teachers is that first year is like a marathon. It's not how fast you can go in 2 weeks, but how fast you can go for the entire year, 2 semesters. Also, don't be afraid to grow a thick skin. Take feedback wisely and apply it. And find yourself a mentor. It's very important to learn from others and to learn from other successful teachers. Also, make sure that you learn from your students, because if you learn from your students, you'll be able to make changes to your upcoming lessons and upcoming years.
Right, if I had known then what I know now, as a secondary teacher, I would probably be more involved, more on top of classroom management and classroom routines at the beginning of my teaching career. I think I was so focused on lesson planning and coming up with great, wonderful lesson plans that maybe I didn't focus as much initially on routines and procedures and discipline, which is also critical, because if you can't get that part mastered, then the lesson plans that you prepared that are wonderful are not going to work out. So I would say focus equally as much on that as you do on your lesson planning. And also, as a secondary teacher, I was very young when I entered the classroom. My students were not that much younger than I was, so I would say don't be afraid to. You know, that they may be close to you in age, but you need to separate yourself and distinguish yourself as the teacher in the classroom, and don't be afraid to impose discipline.
My advice for teachers is to keep current on trends, curriculum, and to continue with professional development, and to always look and learn, because you always want to continue your education and be current on what's going on.
Okay, if I'd have known then what I know now, I would hands down go back through school and teach again. And I love this job here so much that if something happened to this job tomorrow, I would be begging for an elementary job. It is my favorite thing to do, period. So, if you get discouraged or get tired, dig deep in where your passion is and why you did this in the first place. I would definitely do it again.
In regard to if I knew then what I know now, one of the big things would be don't beat yourself up if you don't get everything covered in the time frame that you first planned it. Because you have 188 days to get things taken care of. You've got to learn flexibility. So don't beat yourself up if things don't always go exactly like you want them to, because that can be a lesson that helps you to grow as a teacher. So don't worry if you don't cover it all in the time frame that you allow.
So if I knew back then what I know now, I would not give my students as many things to do, knowing that I would have to.
I wish that I had been more open-minded to all grade levels when I was a teacher, when I was a new teacher. I was really dead set on a certain grade level and certain upper grades, and did not really want to consider middle level grades, and I wish that I had, because if I had to do it all over again and I went back into the classroom, middle school is where I would go. I think at the time I was worried that they were too close in age, but I think given my experience that they have some real benefits because they're still interested in learning. They have a little bit of maturity on them. They are still size-wise manageable, and so if I had to do it over again, I would be open-minded to teaching a variety of grade levels.
If I knew then what I know now, my first year of teaching, I would focus more on the whole student, more on thinking about where he comes from every morning when he comes to me, and more about the impact that I have on him as a person, not just academics, but his self-esteem, his self-worth, just looking at the big picture more than I did my first year of teaching.
Organizational tidbits would be for parents, send home newsletters every week, no matter what grade you're teaching, even if it's big kids, because you are selling yourself as well as keeping all parents informed and everybody on board. They all have equal opportunity to know what's going on in your class. Anytime a parent sends you a letter, be sure to respond that day, no matter what. No matter if it hurt your feelings or made you cry, you get it together and you respond in a professional way. Have your plans done the week before you go home, if at all possible. You can enjoy your family, you can enjoy your weekend, you're not stressing, and you walk out of there and you're ready to roll on Monday.
for organizational helpful hints, I think I would probably say just get yourself a large stack of file folders, different colored file folders. I had one that I carried in my bag with me every day for each class period that I taught, and all of the papers that were submitted each day into that file folder that was clearly labeled for each period. I had a different one that I used for makeup work as well. So that helped keep me organized and keep all the classes' papers together. And I also filed away any lessons that I taught. I clearly labeled those, any tests that I used, so that I could always have a lesson plan to go back and reference when I taught it again in the future.
I know in the days of digital in technology and everything's digital, that the old-timey planning book is kind of gone out of sync with some of the things that we do. But let me say that it's one of your best organizational tools. So you can do one of two things. If you do keep a planning book, you only need to write your students' names in at one time and then make copies of it for your attendance folder and for your homework folder and for your grading folder before you put the grades into the computer. Because I was one of those people, I felt like I needed to write everything out in different colors. And yes, colored folders are great, but you only have to copy it several times. You don't have to make everything the same color. Also, you can create one chart in a Word document and then change the colors if you want to there.
My advice for organization tidbits is to clear your desk every day before you leave for the day, and to have everything ready for the next day. I found it helpful to come in the next day and have everything ready to go. I never know what's going to happen in the morning. Might get stuck behind a bus or a train, and so I could always come in and hit the ground running.
Okay, so I think organization is the key to being a prepared teacher, especially when you're first year, because if you're not organized, then everything else, all the chaos that you're feeling in your brain will come forth. One of the things that I did to organize myself was I created, and now granted I was secondary, but I created like one of those boxes for each one of my classes. So if I had 6 classes in a day, each class would have a box, and each box had file folders with the students' names on them. And when they came in the door, they picked up their file folder, and that's how I called roll every morning. So I would just go over and see whose file folder was still in the box, and that was who was absent. And then I would put it in my STI, and I would go from there. Also in those file folders, I would put graded papers back in. And when they picked them up, they got their papers that way. That way I never lost class time trying to pass out papers. And when they turned in things at the end of the class, they put it in the folder, put their folder back in, and walked out the door.
From New York, the greatest city in the world, it's The Late Show with David Letterman.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's tonight's top 10 list. Let's begin this now. Here we go. Category tonight, top 10
things you don't learn about teaching in college.
Here we go. Number 10.
Why are the bad kids never sick?
Number 9.
No matter how sick you are, it's easier to come into school than to write supplements.
Number 8.
When your students tell you they really have to go to the bathroom, always believe them.
I don't know what to say.
Sorry.
Number 7.
Forget your college friends and loved ones. Who's your new best friend? Twice!
Number 6.
How to disarm the school alarm system on the weekends.
Yeah. Number 5.
We will get so sick and tired of hearing your last names, you'll want to change it.
Number 4.
Your fitness program will consist of carrying your bags to and from school.
Number 3.
2 words. Differentiating instruction.
Hey. Give me. Number 2.
The principal's office. It is still scary.
And the number one thing you don't learn about teaching in college.
And always be good to your superintendent.